We have a conversation every semester about the difference between spec sheets and design measurements and how to indicate each one. Not only is it a hotly debated topic of where each is supposed to be listed, but the first issue is always understanding which is which. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Mikkel Drew Pelham. I talk about digital fashion design software and communication on this channel, so if that's something you're interested in, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. The spec sheet is one of the many important parts of your tech pack. If you're lucky enough to have a tech design team or work with a tech designer, this isn't something you, the designer, have to worry about contributing to the tech pack. But for many of us who do not work for an existing brand or you're just starting and not at the place to have a team, you are the tech designer and you have to create the spec sheet. For most of my students, the spec sheet is not their idea of fun. There's lots of numbers, trying to remember what POMs need to be there, making sure you measure correctly. Oof. They just want to design. But understand that no matter how cute, a poorly fitting garment does not get sold. And if it does, it'll probably be returned. Think about how many brands you've come across where you've thought their stuff is so cute, but it doesn't fit. So it's important for you to give your spec sheet and your design measurements some attention. Now, spec sheets are actually not as crazy as you might think. Spec sheets normally have what's referred to as base or basic measurements. Sometimes these measurements are also referred to as critical measurements. These are the measurements that absolutely have to be listed in order to make that type of garment. So for instance, if you were making a skirt, your critical points of measurement would consist of the waist width, the waistband height if the skirt has a waistband, the low hip and sometimes high hip as well, but low hip is the fullest part of your hip, so it's got to fit there or you can't get the skirt on. The sweep or bottom opening and the body length. If I list all of these measurements on my spec sheet, I can give this to a pattern maker to make a basic skirt pattern, and then a basic skirt sample can be made. At first glance, the spec sheet can be a little intimidating, but once you have the template of POMs, your points of measurement, they don't really change that much. You may delete or add POMs based on the design, but otherwise, this template of measurements pretty much stays the same. What's also great is that once you establish your fit, many of the measurements for these base POMs are the same. Sure, the design lines on your skirt may change, but a size 6 pencil skirt for your brand should consistently fit the same way. There may be exceptions where you're doing something a little different, and chances are if you're changing the fit, it's no longer a pencil skirt. And those exceptions are just that, the exception, not the norm. So much of the time, you won't have to change these numbers. Now, when it comes to design measurements, this is when the magic happens, because this is when you start sprinkling in your creativity. The design measurements are anything that makes your design unique. So how wide is that bottom ruffle? How far does that design line fall? All the things that transform that basic skirt into your unique creation. These are the design measurements. And those are the measurements that only you as the designer would know. So you, the designer, have to be the one to provide them. The next question is always, how am I getting those measurements? Do I just guess? Come on now. Of course you're not. We are always talking about accurate communication on this channel, and measurements are especially important. What I always suggest designers do is to find a like style, something that has a similar silhouette and fit to your new design, and then tape your design lines onto the garment. And when I say tape, I literally mean use thin masking tape, or you can use Scotch tape and then draw on top of the Scotch tape. But what you're doing is drawing out the design on the actual garment so that when you're done, you have something that you can measure. So where these measurements go is part of that hot debate, because No matter how many times I tell my students that they don't need to put them on the spec sheet, they still do it. And I get why they're doing it. I've done it for many years and plenty of companies still do it. But one of the other things you provide is this design measurements page that shows you where and what the measurement is. And real talk, most people will and honestly would rather look at the picture than look at a chart. Writing it again on the spec sheet is just redundant and invites errors, particularly when you need to make updates and you have to do it in two different places. So which do you need for your tech pack? Well, you need both. One provides the information to create the basic shape. The other provides the information to make it distinct. It's like making the sauce for your spaghetti. The sauce in the jar is the spec sheet, but your design measurements are all the spices you add to make it taste amazing. Thanks for watching today's video. If you need more help understanding how to create your spec sheet and get those design measurements, or how to create the complete tech pack in general, make sure you check out my course on creating a fashion tech pack, and I'll add the link in the description. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video if you find it helpful. Have an awesome week, and I'll see you next time.